And so how are you seeing the industry change as well? Like now with AI coming in, and you know that seems to be affecting all the creative industries, film. You know,
I
how are
think
you
people are
seeing it
worried
affecting?
about copyright and also just kind of creativity, and that I could go on chat GBT and ask it to write me a song similar to this or this.
Yeah,
And it's like, whilst before, it would be like people's minds, or, just kind of creative people in a room coming up with these songs, these iconic songs, Imagine or John Lennon or like
mm,
Hey Jude or what, like iconic songs. Now they'll type into chat GBT, write me a song like Imagine.
right.
And it's like, it takes away some of the creative brilliance that you've had in the past. And then you want to believe it can be used in a way to be like, give me ideas like this, and then it might spur something on that leads to more genius. And I
Mm,
think in that instance, incredible.
yeah,
I think where it kind of people depend on it too much, I think is not great, because ultimately storytelling is about storytelling. It's not about generic kind of like, tell me what my story should be about from a Google search
I guess it
situation.
could be like used in certain parts of the workflow of the creative process. So
But that's
yeah,
great if it
yeah.
is. But if you depend on
But
it,
if you're like
yeah,
getting it to come up with even the initial idea, that's kind of ridiculous.
yeah.
That's like,
But then you shouldn't be in that industry. And
yeah,
I guess the other worry initially was when AI first started really kicking off was, people were putting up songs because there's so many AI things where you can mimic people's voices. So
yeah,
there were
yeah.
songs coming online with like Drake's voice. There was a song with like The Weeknd's voice, and these songs came online, did massive amounts of streams, and then obviously got taken down immediately with like copyright laws and other things. And
So is it currently copyrighted someone's the sound
well, no,
ish
no,
of
no,
someone's
because
voice?
you could literally, with various AI things,
Or you can untangle it?
no, you could literally write some lyrics now.
Yeah.
Me and you could write a song now and say, record, and on this AI app, I can't remember the name of it, but there's an app where it
Yeah.
literally can transpose something into whatever artist you can think of, and it sounds precisely like that artist, like
Right.
note for note. It's that you wouldn't be able. There's no person on earth, anyone would
Their
listen to it.
voice signature
Everything the
is the
same.
same,
Everything the same.
and that's provable. That
No, I mean, but the problem is, then people will be like, okay, well this this is obviously not Adele singing
yeah.
these
No,
lyrics,
but
or yeah.
if you don't say it is Adele, can you put it out?
I mean, but that's what
That's where
recently.
it gets kind of
Yeah, that's where it
grey
gets
now.
grey, and
Yeah, yeah. It's
that's where
hard.
like copyright law is being kind of worked on, because as with anything, when change comes about, laws and things have to change because people
Yeah,
haven't thought
because
about these
I
things.
guess it's like with patents. There might be patents out, but if you adjust a patent a little bit, you can put out something kind of similar.
Well, yeah,
Maybe it's the same with like these voices. If you just twist the voice a tiny bit, so it's not exactly the same, but it's very similar.
but it's grey,
Yeah,
and that's the problem, because ultimately, if I'm a record label and I've signed Adele, let's just say, to said record label, don't know why I thought of that, but just if I have
yeah,
signed her, and then you've come along and but I've paid her a lot of money to have her on my label, and
yeah,
then you've come along with your AI platform and you've made an album, but it sounds identical to her.
yeah.
Well, where's my protection?
And is there protection?
But there is under copyright law, but obviously there's these grey areas that are being kind of more
Like when the Weekend
defined.
and the Drake songs
But
came
exactly
out,
that, and
were
those
they able to take them
they
down?
were able to take them down because they were able to prove that that these were
It
like,
sounds too much like me.
yeah, but these were sort of clear sort of
Imitation.
imitation, yeah, people trying to sort of pretend they were something they weren't. They were falsely kind of misleading to the public of like, this is a new Weekend and
Oh
Drake
right, if they
album.
actually label it as that,
Yeah,
yeah.
but even if it wasn't labeled as that, it's clear that you're trying to sell something off the back of this. You haven't
Because
labeled.
people do that anyway in terms of like inspired by other types of
But that's fine if it's
art that's come
but if it's a
before
cover,
them.
if it's clearly labeled as a cover or an
Or cover, but
interpolation.
no, but even like I don't know, any art, like people are influenced by other artists.
Oh, but that's
style.
different
Yeah,
to actually copying someone's voice.
yeah, like exactly, like
But
an
to the point
like
that
a
you could,
impersonation.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the right word.
If you're
Yeah, but
impersonating,
you wouldn't be able to tell me the difference between the Adele or Drake impersonator or the real thing. You would be like, well,
Right.
that's the same thing. It's
Wow.
so scary how accurate it is. There's no scenario on earth you'd be able to tell the difference.
Yeah, that's
And that was the
interesting.
worry with films. You know, I don't know that much about the movie business, but when all these strikes happened, it was because, yeah, they can just get an AI likeness of an actor
Yeah,
and be like, well, we'll just do that.
I've played with it a bit myself. I was just showing some of the guys earlier that you can even create. You can put a photo of someone in as a reference, and you could even put what clothes they're gonna wear,
But
say what scene they're gonna
but
be in,
think
and then you can lip sync
but
afterwards.
think how much
And that's just with like cheap retail consumer
but
based
do you know what I mean?
software.
But then
Yeah.
if I'm an actor or something, think how that's suddenly like, well,
Hey,
what about
hey.
me? Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
And it's the same if I'm a musician.
Well, I guess it will push the acting into some new area.
I
Then.
mean, yeah,
They'll probably have to start.
I don't know that
it's
much
gonna
about acting,
evolve.
but yeah,
Or like singing, or like all the musicians, whatever. Like maybe there's like new types of music that can be made. You know, maybe there's like music that could be integrated with AI. So like you have a live DJ that has cameras facing all the crowds, and it's live getting the reactions. Are they
I mean,
going
yeah,
wild,
yeah.
feeding back into what the next mix might be? That
I don't know what it is, but you know, it's exciting, and I think you have to embrace change in technology. Like
I think if you don't, you're going to get left behind.
100%.
Now. Yeah.
I remember, you know, sitting in a room with this guy called Brian, who was one of the first employees at Spotify, and he showed me Spotify.
Right.
You know, and it would the initial office was like 6 or 7 people in this office in Soho, and I was just like, I don't get it. You know,
You didn't get it?
Well, no, I got it, but I just didn't think anyone would be into it because at the time iTunes was such a thing.
Right.
iTunes was the dominant thing. Everyone had iTunes. Before
Yeah,
that,
but
it was like Napster, and I just thought this is going to take so much investment, and so many people need to buy into this for people to stop caring about iTunes.
And
you
for
know?
them to be able to pay all the artists. I mean,
Yeah,
if you've got everybody on
but
there,
but
which
it's
they
like
did.
yeah, but at the time I didn't, you know, I didn't have the foresight to, you know, to see it. You know, I was in Sweden. I remember, you know, not only did I go to the office in London, but I was in the office in Sweden in the early days, and it was like I didn't understand it. I didn't foresee what it could be, you know. But it's like, but I think instead of like we spoke earlier about mistakes and lessons and things, it's like you have to look at things. Sometimes I might not understand what the next technology
Well, that's the thing
is.
now.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like a similar way, I think we have to be very careful to just dismiss AI as like, no,
But
that's
that's exactly my
not
point.
good for us,
That's,
right?
But that's my point.
Like
yeah.
in terms of blockbuster video versus Netflix
Yeah.
type thing. Is that happening now? And what big companies or industries could just be totally transformed by that? And how do you
100%.
get ahead of that?
But that's it. That's what we've got to think.
And
you
how
know?
can you get your artists to use AI still with
100%,
a
yeah.
creativity? Because I always see AI as just like a very obedient, efficient worker. So in the same way, how if you have someone that works for you, their work is going to be based on how clear your instructions are and how sort of your follow up to
Yeah.
the work they've done, and being like, no, change that, change that, change that, which is what happens anyway in a corporate structure. But you've got somebody who can do the work instantly and isn't upset that you're going to go back to them and
Yeah,
say
yeah,
no
yeah.
change at all. They're not going to
Totally.
be like, I just worked on this for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
It's going
yeah,
to be
yeah,
like,
yeah.
sure, right away, sir. And they